My husband had me removed from our daughter's 6th birthday party by security guards. Not asked to leave, not quietly pulled aside, removed. 2 men in black shirts who took me by the arms in front of 40 people, in front of our neighbors, in front of my mother, in front of every parent who had dropped their child off that afternoon, and walked me toward the gate like I was a trespasser who had wandered into the wrong yard. And my husband David stood 10 feet away, and watched it happen with his arms crossed and his face completely closed, and did not move a single muscle to stop it. But that is not the part that broke me. The part that broke me was my daughter. Avery had been in the middle of the dance floor when it happened. 6 years old, birthday crown on her head, pink frosting on her cheek, spinning in the particular way she spun when she was so happy she couldn't contain it in her body. She heard the commotion the way children hear things, instantly, completely. And she turned, and she saw the 2 men, and she saw her father's face, and then she saw me being pulled away, and something happened to her that I had never seen happen to my child before. She went completely still. And then she screamed. Not a child's tantrum scream, something rower than that. She put both her small hands against her cheeks and she screamed, "Mommy, stay." And the word stay came out of her like something being torn, and every adult in that backyard turned to stone, and the other children stopped moving because children always know when something real is happening, even when they don't have the language for it. I looked at my daughter's face. And then I looked at my husband. And I made him a promise right there, not out loud, not in words he could hear, but the kind of promise that lives in the part of you that does not negotiate and does not forget. David Harmon had no idea what he had just started. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. My name is Claire Harmon, 39 years old, Charlotte, North Carolina. 12 years of marriage to a man I had believed in completely, and one morning in January that ended that particular chapter of my life forever. But before January, you need to understand what I had built. David Harmon started Harmon Architectural Group with a vision, a rented desk, and $240,000 of my money. My grandmother's money, left to me when I was 25, every cent of it invested into David's company before it had a single client or a single completed project. I answered the phones for 3 years without a salary. I negotiated the first vendor contracts. I wrote the company's first website at our kitchen table at 11 o'clock at night, while David slept. I introduced him to Robert Yates, the managing partner whose referrals became the company's 2nd and 3rd largest accounts. I personally connected him to the city procurement officer, whose relationship became a $4.2 million municipal contract 6 years later. I built that company alongside my husband, with my grandmother's money and 3 years of my life, and every professional connection I had. And then David got successful enough to forget that. By year 10, the founding story had been quietly revised. At industry events, at board presentations, at the quarterly dinners where David stood at the head of the table and talked about everything he had built, I was not in the story anymore. I was David Harmon's wife, gracious, supportive, present at the right events in the right dress. The company had a director of operations, and a CFO named Grant Wheeler, and a head of client relations named Serena Cole, and none of them looked at me like someone who had written the first check. I noticed, I said nothing. I told myself this was what happened when a business grew past its origins. I told myself David knew the truth even when he stopped saying it. I was wrong about what David knew. I found out how wrong in January, 6 weeks before Avery's birthday. I had gone to the office to drop off David's forgotten laptop. The reception desk was empty. I walked back toward his office and heard voices through the door, David's and Serena Cole's, and I stopped because I heard my own name. Serena's voice, "Does Claire know about the restructuring?" David's voice, easy, unbothered, "Claire doesn't need to know about the restructuring. Claire isn't part of the business." I stood in the hallway of the company my grandmother's money had launched, and I heard my husband say those words about me like I was a stranger. I left the laptop at the front desk. I drove home. I called my attorney. Her name was Patricia Ward. She had been my personal attorney for 13 years, since before I married David, and she was a specialist in business and contract law. I told her everything, the investment, the 3 years, the contracts, what I had overheard. Patricia told me to bring her every document I had. I had everything. The original investment agreement Patricia herself had drafted 12 years ago contained a clause that entitled me to 15% equity in the company in perpetuity, plus mandatory notice of any corporate restructuring. David had signed it. It was airtight. Patricia also found 6 years of correspondence in which David had referred to me repeatedly as co-founder and partner. She found records of the Robert Yates referral relationship originating with me. She found documentation connecting me directly to the municipal contract introduction. Then she told me what the restructuring was actually designed to do. David was rebuilding the company's legal structure from the ground up in a way that would permanently sever the original investment from the current entity. When it was complete, my equity claim would be against a corporate structure that no longer existed. My name, my money, my 3 years, legally invisible. Gone. And he had started planning it in September. While I was making school lunches and planning Avery's birthday party and driving his forgotten laptop to his office, my husband had been 4 months into erasing me. I sat across from Patricia and I felt something shift in me. Not grief, not panic, something colder and more purposeful than either of those. I asked her what we could do. She pushed a document across the desk and told me. I spent the next 6 weeks preparing in complete silence. Patricia built the legal case. She prepared a formal notice that would trigger David's obligations under the investment agreement the moment it was served. She filed a quiet preliminary declaration with the city's procurement office connecting my name to the municipal contract's originating relationship. A declaration that, once filed, meant any restructuring misrepresenting the company's founding history would put that $4.2 million contract into immediate review. I said nothing at home. I made dinner. I helped Avery with her homework. I planned the birthday party with the same care I brought to everything that mattered. David had started something in September. I had started something in January. On the morning of Avery's birthday, a manila envelope arrived at our front door. I answered it. I brought it inside and set it on the kitchen counter and made Avery's birthday breakfast. When David came downstairs, his eyes found the envelope immediately, the way guilty eyes always find the thing they were afraid of, and I watched the colour leave his face when he read the return address. Patricia Ward, attorney at law. He opened it, he read it. The kitchen was very quiet. He looked up at me. You hired Patricia. She's been my attorney since before I married you, I said. Something moved behind his eyes, calculation, fast and cold, and he put the envelope in his jacket pocket and said we would talk about it after the party. I said yes, we would. I already knew we would not need to. The party was in full colour by noon. Pink and gold, Avery's specific requirement, balloon arch over the cake table, face painter in the corner, the small dance floor that had been Avery's single most non-negotiable. Birthday demand, 40 people in our backyard on Brentwood Circle. Music, children, the specific joy of a 6-year-old who has been waiting for this day for months and cannot believe it is finally here. I moved through the party and I watched David. He was managing something. I could see it in the way he held his phone, checking it, putting it away, checking it again. At 1:30 he stepped to the back of the yard and made a call that lasted 4 minutes with his back partially turned and one hand running through his hair. At 2 o'clock he was on his phone again. At 2:15 Grant Wheeler's name appeared on his screen. I saw it from 6 feet away, and David rejected the call. At 2:30 he came to find me. I was at the drink table. He came up beside me without greeting and held his phone toward me. On the screen was an email from Grant Wheeler timestamped that morning, restructuring filing complete, confirmation attached. Grant filed it this morning, David said, low, controlled. Before Patricia's notice was officially timestamped into our system, he moved the timeline up. It's done, Claire. Your equity claim is against a structure that no longer legally exists. I looked at the screen. I looked at my husband. And you're telling me this at our daughter's birthday party, I said. I'm telling you now because the response window on Patricia's notice starts today and I want this settled. His voice had the particular flatness of a man who has closed a door and wants you to accept that it is closed. The restructuring is complete. Patricia can contest it, but we have Grant's full legal team, and it will take 2 years and you will spend money you. David, I kept my voice very quiet. Stop. He stopped. I reached into my pocket and took out my own phone. I opened my email and turned the screen toward him. It was a message from Patricia timestamped 7:43 that morning, sent before the envelope was delivered, before Grant filed anything. The subject line read, "Municipal Contract Declaration Filed." David's eyes moved across the screen. "Patricia filed with the city's procurement office at 7:43 this morning," I said. "A formal declaration of my originating role in the municipal contract, supported by 6 years of correspondence. The city suspended the contract at 8:15 pending a review of the company's representations about its founding history and client relationships." I put the phone back in my pocket. "Your restructuring was filed against a company whose largest contract is currently frozen. Which means Grant's filing has a material problem your legal team is going to find very uncomfortable." David's face had changed entirely. "I also called Robert Yates," I said. "He's withdrawing the referral relationship. Both client accounts are being notified today." The color that had left David's face in the kitchen that morning did not come back. "And Patricia is filing a misrepresentation petition tomorrow morning," I said, "which names Grant Wheeler personally. He will receive his copy tonight." Silence. David looked at me like a man who had arrived at the end of a hallway and found no door. Then his jaw set. His eyes went somewhere I recognized, the place David went when he felt cornered, where he stopped thinking clearly and started making decisions he could not take back. He raised his hand. He gestured across the yard to the 2 security guards stationed near the catering table. They came toward me with the efficiency of men who had been briefed. And the party stopped. Not gradually, not in pieces. All at once, the music was playing and then it wasn't, the conversations were happening and then they weren't. 40 people turned in the same moment and understood in the same moment what they were watching. And the silence that came down over that backyard was the kind that has weight. I did not fight it. I had already decided I would not fight it. I made that decision in the 2 seconds between David raising his hand and the guards reaching me. I was not going to give David a scene. I was not going to give him chaos or tears or anything he could use. I was going to walk out of this yard composed and clear and let every adult present draw their own conclusions from what they had witnessed, because what they had witnessed did not require interpretation. I was almost to the gate. And then I heard her. Avery had been on the dance floor. She had been spinning, birthday crown on, pink frosting on her cheek, completely inside her own happiness. She heard the silence the way children hear silence, like an alarm, and she turned, and she saw the men, and she saw her father's face, and then she found me. She put both hands against her cheeks. She screamed, "Mommy, stay." The word stay came out of her like something being ripped loose, and she ran toward me, not toward David, not toward any of the adults, toward me. And one of the guards stepped into her path gently, and she stopped, and she stood there in her birthday crown with her hands still pressed to her face and her whole body shaking, and she screamed it again, "Mommy, stay, Mommy, please stay." And the sound of it went through every person in that yard like a current. I saw my friend Karen's hand go over her mouth. I saw my neighbor Donna turn away. I saw 3 of the other mothers pull their children close without knowing they were doing it. I saw David. He was still standing with his arms crossed, and for one moment, one single moment, something moved across his face that looked like doubt. Then it closed again. He looked away from Avery. That was what I carried through the gate with me, not my own humiliation, my daughter's face and the fact that her father had looked away from it. My sister Laura was outside before the gate had finished swinging shut. Then Karen. Then my mother, who came through the side yard with her phone already in her hand and her eyes asking me one question. I nodded once. She called James Whitfield, my uncle. 64 years old, retired federal attorney, executor of my grandmother's estate, who had watched me write that check 12 years ago and had been standing by for my call for 3 weeks. He picked up on the second ring. "It happened," my mother said. "Patricia is filing the emergency injunction in 40 minutes, he said. "Stay where you are." We stood in my own driveway. Laura held my hand. Karen said nothing useful and everything necessary. My mother stood close. Inside the backyard, the party was trying to restart and failing, because there are things a party cannot come back from, and what had just happened was one of them. 38 minutes later, Patricia called. "Emergency injunction granted," she said. "Full legal hold on the municipal contract. The restructuring filing is flagged for misrepresentation review." Grant Wheeler's personal attorney called my office 11 minutes ago. He's scared, I said. Extremely, Patricia said, which means he cooperates, which means the restructuring falls apart from the inside. David's board will know by Monday. They cannot operate under these conditions, no new contracts, no financial transactions above 10,000 without court approval. He will settle within 2 weeks. I thanked her, I hung up. I looked at my sister, I straightened my jacket, I walked back through the gate. The yard was quiet in the way yards go quiet when the adults in them are waiting for something to resolve. The face painter had packed up. Half the families had taken their children home, not with anger but with the uncomfortable haste of people who have witnessed something private and want to give it space. The balloon arch was still there. The birthday cake was still on the table, untouched, 6 candles unlit. Avery was sitting on the back steps with my neighbour Donna's arm around her. Her birthday crown was on the ground beside her. When she saw me come through the gate, she was off the steps before I could take another step. She hit me at full speed. I caught her and held her, and she pressed her face into my neck, and I felt her whole body shaking with the aftermath of the kind of crying that exhausts you completely. I held her the way you hold the most important thing in the world. I've got you, I said, I'm right here. He made you leave, she said into my neck. It's my birthday and he made you leave. I know, Bug. You came back. I always come back, I said. You understand me, I always come back. She pulled back and looked at my face with her eyes still wet and her crown long gone and pink frosting still somehow on her cheek, and she put both her small hands on either side of my face. The same hands she had pressed to her own cheeks 20 minutes ago, and she looked at me with absolute seriousness. Are we okay, she said. I looked at my daughter, 6 years old and already asking the question adults spend their whole lives trying to answer. We are more than okay, I said, I promise you. She looked at me for 3 more seconds, assessing, the way she assessed things that mattered. Then she nodded once, climbed down, picked up her birthday crown, put it back on her head at the sideways angle she wore everything, and turned to the remaining guests. Can we do the cake now, she said, I want to do the cake. Somebody laughed, then somebody else. And the specific relief that comes when a child leads the way back into the light filled that backyard and the remaining guests moved toward the cake table, and the candles were found and the lighter was found, and I stood next to my daughter while 6 flames were lit in the early evening air. David was at the far edge of the yard. He was on his phone, his back to us, and I could see from the tension in his shoulders that the call was not going well. Grant Wheeler, I assumed, or his board chair, or Stevens, his personal attorney, who had presumably spent the afternoon reviewing what Patricia had filed and arriving at conclusions that were not good for David. I did not look at him for long. I looked at my daughter and her 6 candles and her sideways crown, and I helped her take a breath deep enough to blow them all out at once. She did it, every one, the backyard clapped. David settled on a Thursday 11 days later. Patricia's office, 9 o'clock, his attorney Stevens sitting beside him with the expression of a man who had advised his client to do this a week ago. James Whitfield was on speakerphone. The meeting lasted 2 hours. David signed everything. Full equity restoration. My name reinstated as co-founder in every piece of official company documentation, retroactive to the founding year. My role in the first 3 years formally recorded in the company's legal history. The restructuring redesigned from the ground up to include me as a named equity stakeholder. Grant Wheeler had already resigned. His personal attorney had strongly recommended it once Patricia's misrepresentation petition made his liability clear. The municipal contract review resolved within the week. The city, presented with Patricia's documentation of my originating role, was satisfied. The hold was lifted. The $4.2 million project moved forward. With my name on it. Not David's name only, not the company name only. Every piece of official project documentation now read, Harmon Architectural Group, co-founded by Claire and David Harmon. I received the first project correspondence at home on a Tuesday morning. I sat at my kitchen table on Brentwood Circle, and I held the letter, and I thought about my grandmother. I thought about the check I had written at 26 years old. I thought about 3 years of answering phones and writing copy at 11 o'clock at night, and negotiating contracts in my own name. I thought about the box in my closet where I had kept every document for 12 years, because she had told me a woman should always know where her documents are. I thought about Avery's hands pressed to her cheeks, Mommy, stay. I folded the letter and put it in the box alongside everything else. Then I went to the living room where Avery was doing her Saturday morning drawing, spread out on the floor with her markers and her enormous sheets of paper the way she always worked, completely absorbed. Put your shoes on, I said, we're going out. She looked up. Where? Wherever you want, I said, your choice, completely yours. Her face did what it always did when given full authority over something. It lit up with the specific joy of a child who takes choices seriously. She thought about it for 4 seconds. Pancakes, she said, the ones with the sprinkles baked in, and then the bookstore, and then the park. Perfect, I said. She scrambled up and found one shoe immediately, and the second shoe after a search that involved looking in 3 places it could not possibly have been. She put her jacket on inside out. I righted it. She put her hand in mine. We walked out the front door into the Charlotte morning together. The city was bright and ordinary and full of people living their Saturday lives, and my daughter's hand was in mine, and ahead of us were pancakes and a bookstore and a park and everything that was still entirely ours. I had built something once with my hands and my grandmother's money and 3 years of work. I had let become invisible. My name was on it now. And so was I. If this story touched you, please subscribe so you never miss a story. I will see you in the next one.